Ganoderma lucidum, aka Reishi mushroom. Now, Reishi truly is one of the most potent and profound tonic herbs that I've had the privilege to include into my life. It's really transformed my health and my life in general on a really significant level, and it continues to do so. You know, I've been using it for a number of years and the results just continue to unfold. So, you know, there's a number of different types of Reishi. I mean, the Ganoderma family is actually quite large, but, you know, there's many different varieties of Reishi. There's, you know, red Reishi, yellow, purple, black, and they all kind of have different properties. You know, each one has a slightly different emphasis in a slightly different area, but what appears to be the most complete and well-balanced and well-rounded variety of all the Reishis is the red Reishi. So that's really what we're going to be talking about in this video. Now, it's known in China as Ling Qi, which roughly translates as the mushroom of immortality, and it's been used and revered for thousands and thousands of years in the East as an absolutely life-changing natural medicine. And Shen Nong wrote about Reishi. He actually put an entry into his classic herbal medicine pharmacopoeia that he wrote nearly 2,000 years ago. But Reishi's use and reverence actually extends back, you know, a lot further back than just that. I mean, Reishi has been used in very ancient times for a very long time, but it's actually been used as a focal point for a lot of sacred artwork as well. So just the sheer beauty and presence of Reishi is really said to provide a lot of medicine in and of itself before you actually even ingest it. In much more recent times, Reishi's actually become one of the, if not the most well-studied herb ever. And scientific analysis has really begun to validate and verify what a lot of the ancient wisdom surrounding Reishi was telling us all along, that it really is one of the most powerful adaptogenic natural tonic medicines that exists. Now, adaptogenic herbs are substances that, once ingested, they basically work on creating a state of balance within the body and a state of harmony with the surrounding environment. And they're basically enhancing our healing and repair mechanisms within the body and really enhancing our ability to handle stress. They create in the body what's called a host-mediated response, which basically means that they're creating certain reactions in the body that are beneficial for your individual situation. So they're never going to work the same from one person to the next. They may stimulate a certain aspect of one person's metabolism, whereas they're actually going to lower that in somebody else. It really just depends on what we need as individuals. So adaptogens truly are very intelligent medicines, and the fact that they actually support our own innate ability to handle stress is just so important in the world today, because we're just exposed to such ridiculously excessive levels of stress now, whether it's, you know, stress from our very high-powered careers or stress from, you know, electromagnetic fields that are actually surrounding us no matter where we are in the world today, or the, you know, elevated levels of radiation, atmospheric and environmental radiation that surrounds us. Really, there's just so many different kinds of stress that we're exposed to constantly. So consuming adaptogenic substances is actually one of the most beneficial health strategies that any of us, all of us, could be implementing at this point in human history. And Reishi mushroom is really one of the top adaptogenic herbs of all time. Now, one of Reishi's most famous healing attributes is its ability to modulate the immune system. So it's basically going to enhance or stimulate immune function in those people that need that, whereas it's actually going to lower immune function in those people that already have a hyperactive immune system and, you know, maybe have an autoimmune condition, allergies, asthma, and that kind of thing. So, as we said, with the adaptogenic nature of Reishi, it's always trying to bring us into a state of dynamic equilibrium. It's not at all the same as some of the other popular immune-enhancing herbs that we see, like echinacea. Echinacea really goes into the body and it just does one thing. It stimulates the immune system, whether you need it or not. So Echinacea can be a very good tool for helping people with a sluggish immune system to be taken intermittently over the course of time, but you know, it just has one trick. It just has one tool, and it goes in and it uses that one tool regardless of whether you need it or not. Whereas adaptogenic herbs like reishi, they don't just have one tool, they've actually got an entire tool bag full of different tools, and they're going to go into your body and they're really going to survey the interior environment in the body and make an educated decision on what should be done and what tools should be used. So, you know, through scientific analysis, reishi has shown that it has over 100 different polysaccharides, which are the nutrients that actually enhance immune function. They plug into immune cells. Essentially, they plug into and connect with macrophages in the bloodstream, and macrophages kind of digest these polysaccharides and then redistribute them throughout the immune system so that every other immune cell gets to benefit from that. So yeah, it's got over 100 different types of polysaccharides. It has 119 different triterpene compounds as well, and all of these constituents have shown to really upregulate the intelligence and the function of macrophages and lymphocytes and natural killer cells, really just the whole range of immune cells. Out of reishi's vast triterpene complex, it has two compounds in particular called ganoderic and ganoderenic acids, and these have shown really awesome results in treating autoimmune conditions and allergies. But probably the most well-researched element to these chemicals is their ability to tonify the liver and really enhance overall liver function. So they're really helping the liver to assimilate and utilize nutrients. They're helping it to store excess nutrients as well. But they're also helping to support the liver's natural detoxification process that it performs for us constantly. So harmful, toxic chemicals are actually being broken down and rendered harmless and excreted from the body with, you know, much more ease. But they're also some of them are being chemically restructured from a harmful toxic substance into something that the body can actually make use of and that can utilize. But these ganoderic acids in particular have a very direct effect on healing the liver because they're a beta-glucuronidase inhibitor. Now, beta-glucuronidase is an enzyme in the liver that's actually very prevalent and very active in certain liver dysfunctions like hepatitis and cirrhosis. So reishi is actually having a direct effect on inhibiting that liver enzyme and actually reducing the severity of these conditions. A lot of reishi's other triterpenes have shown very pronounced antioxidant qualities, so you know, they're protecting from free radical damage and enhancing cell repair and all this kind of stuff. And they're also very anti-inflammatory, so they've been used with great results in treating arthritis. And they're also really increasing the absorption capacity for oxygen within the body. So they're actually dilating the alveoli in the lungs so that we can absorb more oxygen, and they're increasing the flow of oxygen throughout the body and the utilization of it throughout the body. So, you know, the whole human organism is benefiting from this, but for specifically the alveoli in the lungs and the dilation of them, reishi has become really quite renowned as a very effective treatment, natural treatment for asthma and bronchitis and other, you know, lung-related conditions. Reishi is also a very powerful tonic to the kidneys and the heart, and for the heart in particular, it can reduce diastolic blood pressure, which is the blood that's entering the heart, and it does that without impacting or altering the natural rhythm of the heartbeat in any way. And it's been used also for a very long time now as a very successful cardiovascular medicine in general, because not only does it have this tonifying effect on the heart, but it also inhibits cholesterol synthesis. So, you know, it's being used as part of an overall treatment therapy for things like atherosclerosis. Now, aside from these aspects, reishi is also a very powerful antiviral medicine, and studies have shown that it can inhibit the replication of the HIV virus, and it's actually very good at repairing and healing immune cells that have become infected with the virus. Reishi mushroom has garnered significant interest and attention over the years as a powerful anti-cancer medicine. But to explore this particular aspect of reishi's healing benefits, I'd just like to read a little bit from Paul Stamets' book, Mycomedicinals. Now, the book says, studies have ascertained that the primary anti-tumor effects of Ganoderma lucidum are from biological response modification of the host. Reishi's polysaccharides caused a 5 to 29-fold increase in tumor necrosis factors, and that the polysaccharides of Ganoderma lucidum significantly inhibited the growth of leukemia cells. A unique beta-glucan from the mycelium enhanced the production of nitric oxides from macrophages, but decreased other free radicals and the collateral harm that they cause to healthy cells. This mechanism was further elucidated and showed that tumor necrosis factors were released by macrophages 8 hours after exposure to derivatives of mushroom polysaccharides, targeting cancerous cells, followed 4 hours later by a burst of nitric oxide, which then killed the diseased cells. So, I think it's quite safe to say that the results, they're fairly conclusive, that reishi does offer very significant anti-cancer benefits. Reishi has been widely understood for many thousands of years to be a powerful three-treasure tonic. Now, for those of you that don't know what I mean by that, the Taoist health philosophy is founded on the idea that all life comprises of three energies or three treasures, and those treasures are called Jing, Qi, and Shen. So in a nutshell, Jing basically represents our most fundamental life force essence. It's the substance of what we are. It's housed in the kidneys and the adrenals, and it really represents our youthfulness and our ability to heal and repair and our ability to reproduce as well. So we see when we're really young, we have a lot of Jing, we have a lot of energy. We can treat ourselves very badly with very minimal or no consequences, and we heal very quickly. And as we're growing into young adulthood, we're very virile, we've got a lot of reproductive potential. And so we have a lot of Jing throughout childhood up to, the early stages of adulthood. But we see as we begin to age through adulthood, we begin to heal more quickly. We begin to have less available energy. We begin to, our ability to reproduce begins to decline, and then, at some point for many of us dries up altogether. So this is, us using up our Jing battery. The kidneys are basically like the Jing batteries. And so the aim in the Taoist healing arts was really to keep those Jing batteries as full as possible throughout life, so that we could extend our lives, we could increase longevity and actually enhance our health and wellness throughout that time. So Jing really is our fundamental substance. It's our life force essence. Now Qi, if Jing is the substance of life, then Qi is the animation of life. It's the movement of life. So Qi, in a way, is like the aliveness and the movement of Jing. If we didn't have Qi and only Jing, we would just be a kind of static matter that couldn't move or do anything. So Qi is really what gives us this animation. Now we're getting Qi from the air that we breathe, we're getting Qi from the food that we eat, from the nutrients that we're digesting. So Qi is very closely tied into respiratory health, to exercise, to digestive health, and Qi really represents our immediate energy needs. It represents our daily moment-by-moment energy needs. So if we're getting low on Qi, if we're not exercising properly, if we're not breathing properly, if we're not digesting our food properly, then we can have a deficiency in Qi, which can actually lead us to start tapping into our Jing battery just so that we can have enough available energy to get through the day. So balancing these two energies is very, very important. And when these two energies are balanced, they give rise to a third energy, which is called Shen. Now Shen basically represents our spiritual power. Shen is like the spirit energy. Shen is our potential. It's the fulfillment of our life's purpose. It's the realization of our life's purpose, and then it's the fulfillment of that purpose. So Shen is really the whole point. Shen is the reason why we're here. Shen is our personal evolution. So all three of these treasures combined basically make up what we are. They make up all life, essentially. And so if we can enhance our circulation of these three treasures and actually build them up and increase them over time, then we're actually working on every aspect of our being energetically. So this was really the Taoist health philosophy, was to cultivate all three treasures and actually reach levels of profound health and longevity because of that, and profound realization and spiritual power as well. So there's a number of different herbs in the Taoist health system. Some nourish one treasure, some nourish two treasures, but three treasure tonics that actually tonify and build all three treasures are much more rare. And reishi mushroom is actually one of the premier three treasure tonics, and it's specifically a very potent Shen tonic. Now, in regards to it being a Shen tonic and a spirit building herb, you know, it's another one of its very famous names is the herb of spiritual potency. And when we look at reishi in this way, what's widely understood is that reishi works in the human mind and in the human psyche and in the human spirit in much the same way as it does in its wild natural ecosystem. So in its native habitat, reishi is basically what's known as a saprophytic mushroom. So it's growing on dying and dead organic matter, and it's actually accelerating the breakdown process of that matter so it can very quickly return it to the soil or to the rhizosphere of the forest, and that whole ecosystem can then benefit from the work that reishi is conducting. So it's basically just breaking things down at a very accelerated rate and feeding and nourishing its ecosystem so that the ecosystem can become more resilient and more adaptive and stronger and more healthy because of that. So in regards to us consuming reishi as a, you know, for its Shen benefits, it's believed to work in much the same way because reishi singles out particular aspects of our mind or of our spirit, say, you know, habitual tendencies or repetitive behavioral patterns that really are not serving our own development at all anymore. They're actually standing as major obstacles to our personal progress in life. And so reishi, in a sense, grows saprophytically upon these parts of ourselves and begins to help us and support us in coming to terms with them and actually breaking them down and converting them into beneficial nutrients that can actually feed and benefit our spiritual ecology, the ecology of our minds. So reishi actually helps us to grow in this way, and it's actually a profound catalyst for personal development and is really one of the main reasons why reishi has become so widely recognized as one of the top anti-stress herbs that we have available to us in the world today. So when we think about it, reishi is actually tonifying the lungs, the heart, the liver, the kidneys. It's modulating the immune system, it's healing and repairing and rebuilding the nervous system. It's allowing us to handle stress so much more easily. It's having that kind of adaptogenic bi-directional effect on us, on our entire physiology and our metabolism. And it's really helping us to detoxify from very toxic, harmful substances that we're coming into contact with all the time. Plus it's a three treasure tonic, and it's really helping us to catalyze our own personal development. So, you know, when you look at all of these benefits that reishi can offer to us, you can see why reishi's also got another reputation. It's actually got another name that it's widely used by as the Great Protector. Because when it's doing all of this for us, when we've been consuming reishi over the long term and we've actually developed a very intimate and close relationship to it, and we've been working with it consistently over a long period of time, we begin to feel much more deeply nourished and protected. We can actually step into the world with a bit less fear and a bit more bravery, and reishi can really support us in that process. It's certainly helped me in that regard, and it's actually very rare to come across people that have been developing this kind of intimacy with reishi over the long term that don't actually have these kind of testimonials about it. You know, it's most people that have been using it for a while will tell you something similar to this. So yeah, reishi really is the great protector. It protects us on almost every level imaginable. Reishi grows in a number of different climates, but it does tend to prefer and proliferate more in the more warmer, humid climates. So if you actually have access to wild reishi growing where you live, then by all means go and harvest it, but you really must approach it conscientiously and with a mindset of sustainability, because the ecosystem very much needs that medicine as well. So we shouldn't ever really take more than we need, and we should learn over time to assess the ecosystem and really connect with it in a way that we can ascertain whether or not that ecosystem can afford for us to take any, and if so, how much. Other than that, consuming reishi products. Now, there's a lot of products on the market. Unfortunately, the vast majority of them are pretty crap. If you're buying in wild, harvested reishi products, then you really just want to check the integrity of that person that's selling it to you, because first of all, it might not be wild, and if it is wild, you want to make sure that they're taking it from as pristine an ecosystem as possible, because medicinal mushrooms do tend to accumulate toxic substances in their fruit bodies. They're very good at cleaning up the polluted, contaminated environment in that way, but the fruit body is the part that we're using for medicine. So if a mushroom has been taken from a contaminated area, it's unlikely to be safe to consume. If you're buying in the whole dried mushroom, then you just want to break it up into as small pieces as you can and decoct that in hot water for a few hours, and that's going to extract all of the polysaccharides, and it's going to make a very nourishing herbal tea. You can also extract it into a very strong alcohol like ethanol to get all those alcohol-soluble triterpene compounds. You could do both extractions and combine them to make a dual extract, which actually has the full spectrum of reishi's beneficial medicinal constituents. But if you're buying in extracts and things like that, or any kind of reishi product really, you want to make sure that you're not buying in just ground up mushroom powder, because it hasn't been extracted, and if you just consume that straight, it's so rich in fiber, it's just going to pass right through the body, out the other side, and it's going to have really minimal to no benefit whatsoever. So if you're buying the actual just dried powder, you're going to need to actually extract that yourself. You're going to need to make a tea with it or a tincture with it or something like that. So if you're buying an extract, you want to make sure that if it's a powdered extract, you want to make sure it's a concentrated powdered extract. So normally these extracts come with a ratio, like a 10-to-1 ratio, which basically means they've taken 10 pounds or whatever weight measurement. They've taken 10 pounds, let's say, of the whole dried mushroom, and they've condensed that down into 1 pound of extract. So the extract is essentially 10 times more potent. And you want to get a dual extract, so it's actually got the water-soluble and alcohol-soluble constituents combined. If you're buying a liquid extract, it's the same, like a tincture. You want to get a dual extract, and you want that ratio to actually be smaller this time. So the smaller the ratio, the more concentrated it is with liquid extract. So rather than a 10-to-1 ratio for the powder, which would be very strong, you want to get that as low as possible for a tincture. So if it's like 3-to-1, 2-to-1, 1-to-1, the lower down the scale you get, the more concentrated it is, because that means that there's the same amount in a 1-to-1 extract, let's say, there would be the same amount of liquid to the same amount of herbs, so it would be very, very concentrated. Aside from that, when we're dealing with cultivated reishi, we really want to be getting something called Duan wood reishi. A lot of other cultivated reishi is just grown on grain. It's grown in a way that really doesn't provide the mushroom with all of its nutritional requirements, and so the end result is something that isn't nutritionally balanced. It's not medicinally active in anywhere near the same way as it could or should be. So growing it on grain and growing it using chemicals, definitely not ideal. Some grain growing procedures for reishi can be very productive. They can be very potent if they're done in the right way, but generally speaking, it's much better to get something called Duan wood reishi, because Duan wood reishi is reishi that's grown. This is a cultivation technique that's been developed in China, in the Changbai mountain region, and in that area they're growing Duan wood reishi on logs of trees native to that area that reishi would be growing on in the wild. And this procedure doesn't require anything other than like mountain spring water added to it. So there's no need for chemicals, there's no need for pesticides, there's no need for any of that. And the Chinese government have actually legislated against any chemicals at all being used in this growing process. So if you're buying Duan wood reishi, you know that you're getting the best product that there is. And Duanwood Reishi has been consistently proven to be at least, if not more than twice as potent as any other cultivated Reishi on the market, and it's actually more potent than a number of wild harvested varieties that have been found. So Duanwood Reishi is really, it's more affordable than a lot of the wild Reishi, and it's actually more sustainable because it's cultivated. It's very, very potent, it's very reliable, it's very consistent. You know, in my mind, it's definitely the best option if you want to be including Reishi into your life on a very consistent long-term basis. So really, that's it for now. There's a lot more to talk about with Reishi, but this video is already getting way too long, so we'll meet up again in another video and we'll discuss other benefits specifically.